And thanks for joining us this Saturday for Fight Night Picks Kicks. And hey, maybe you didn't know it, but Fight Night Picks, we have a website, fightnightpicks.net. So make sure you check it out. If you missed some of the YouTube content, it's over there. And hey, maybe you don't have enough time to watch some of our shows on YouTube. We also have the various Fight Night Picks podcasts featured on the site, as well as iTunes and Spotify, the latest episodes of Early Stoppage and the predictions, and soon to be a recap show. And the other way that you can support the boys, check out the store. We got some awesome shirts and hats over there. FightNightPicks.net. I mean, hey, who doesn't need a long sleeve shirt? A couple t-shirts. Maybe you're lacking. Maybe you need to add to the wardrobe. Or maybe you need to check out that Fight Night Picks Under Armour cap. Did I take that picture myself and Photoshop it? You're darn tootin' I did. So check it out, fightnightpicks.net. Without further ado, let's get into it. Fight Night Picks is brought to you by Vertiball. Head on over to their website. It's vertiball.com. And listen, it's an awesome product. It's a local company out of New Brunswick, Canada. So make sure you support those guys locally as well as Fight Night Picks. But they're the only mountable portable muscle massager. They can stick onto any smooth surface. They've got an industrial strength suction cup. Can support over 100 pounds of pressure. You can get really into those deep knots. I have one here at home. I use it for my back and my shoulders from holding up that Fight Night Picks Pick'em trophy. But listen, make sure you check them out. It's a great product. Like I said, they're recommended by physiotherapists, masseuses, and chiropractors across Canada, the US, UK, and Australia. And they're used by countless professional athletes like Minkah Fitzpatrick on screen there, as well as Clelin Ferrell of the Raiders. So if you head into the cart, make sure you check them out. So I've got a Vertiball massager in my cart right there. Use the promo code FNP. You're going to save 10% off your order. You're supporting this company here that I'm very passionate about in New Brunswick, Canada, and you're helping out us as well. So make sure you check them out, vertiball.com, promo code FNP, 10% off your order. And without further ado, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. It's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig and Matt Allen.
Oh boy, and Matt, we have a great show coming up today. Fight Night Picks, Kicks. I want to thank everybody for joining in over there in the chat. And Matt, it's a really busy day in MMA. I mean, there's so many different cards going on. You had KSW, there's Glory live right now on YouTube, the prelims, getting ready for the Badr Hari fight. And of course, later on tonight, we have Wonderboy Thompson taking on Jeff Neal. All kinds of exciting stuff to get ready for. And I want to thank each and every one of you for joining in with Fight Night Picks Kicks. We appreciate the views. We appreciate the likes. We definitely appreciate the subs. And Matt, this has been the biggest year of Fight Night Picks in our, 2-year history. So it's been absolutely amazing. I know there's been a lot of different changes to Fight Night Picks, of course. We've added a recap show recently. Early Stoppage just went live 2 hours ago with myself and John Franklin talking about the Anthony Johnson and Yoel Romero signings in Bellator, among other things. But it's been a really great year, and I just wanted to thank everybody. I know Rob over there is saying dogs barking. David Gonzalez is hanging out. SAPT are here every single week. And Nunya asking for a lock of the night. I mean, hey, if you're a Fight Night Picks fan, we're a little leery of the lock of the night, especially with Tyler Santos taking on Jillian Robertson on this card. Tyler Santos has burned us once before. But either way, it is a great card. Elongated Rat asking about the big parlay. You got Rice, I'm assuming, Arroyo, and Tafon Chookway. What do I think about it? That Arroyo fight with Deron Winn, I got to be totally honest. We made a pick on that one really early on in the week. Obviously, Deron Winn is so much smaller in stature than Arroyo. You have to think that the weight cut, though, definitely affected Arroyo more than it did with Deron Winn. Being that Arroyo already matched up in a fight not long ago. He's supposed to be taking on a really tough out in Eric Anders. And then it's more or less his reasoning as to being at 195 pounds. So I do worry about him for sure. Mr. Luxury hitting us up in the super chat. That chat's only going to get more and more busy. Appreciate the $20 over there. You got your money on Chaos Williams round 1 today. Sean McMinn hitting us up in the super chat too. Pip, to doodly do. Let's get into it. And Matt, yeah, it is a great card. There are a lot of really good fights. There's only a few things that I really like on this card. I'm actually going with a couple of different props for myself today. I've got the Giagos minus fight being an over 1.5 rounds. I got that parlayed with Tafon Chookway, and that's kind of my pick on this one here.
Yeah, no, I've got a couple. I've got Marlon Vera, Jose. Again, we'll get into the picks later, and then I'll reveal my parlay. A lot of really exciting fights, though. I do like just sort of the matchmaking on this card overall. A lot of really competitive matchups. Not a lot of fights that you can look to and be like, oh, they're definitely going to win. Just exciting fights top to bottom. And this main event, I couldn't really tell you the last time I've been this split on a fight, just because both guys kind of counter what the other guy does. So it'll be a really interesting sort of chess match on the feet. But I am much more excited for this card, especially... Listen, we've had a lot of COVID fights fall out, and this card has still remained pretty strong, even with all the cancellations. So.
Yeah, 100%. So, Matt, let's go over to the Fight of the Night screen. And we talked about this earlier on in the week, the fact that there's so many different fights on here and so many different storylines. But it is, of course, the end of the year. There's a lot of things to really look forward to. For me, the Fight of the Night, Jose Aldo, Marlon Vera. I mean, I know the conversation's pretty well swayed this week over the fact that, well, Jose Aldo is definitely going to win the first round. Marlon Vera is probably going to win the second and third rounds. But who knows? It's a fist fight, and Jose Aldo on the scales. I know there's a lot of people that are of the camp again. He looked great. Other people think that he doesn't look all that great. Words are hard sometimes. And the Instagram game only tells you so much. But over there, he looked like he's keeping in pretty good shape. Overall, I'm really looking forward to this fight. It is one of those Strikers Paradise ones. I know each guy is adept on the ground. I don't expect that we see much of a ground game in this one.
No, I agree. This is kind of a crossroads fight at one of its highest levels. Because if Marlon Vera is able to win this fight over Jose Aldo, this will be sort of the first drop down in competition that Jose Aldo will have lost to. And that just puts an absolute rocket to the back of Marlon Vera. If you have back-to-back wins over Sean O'Malley, who, yes, he's still young in his career, but I think we can all agree, one of the bigger stars in the UFC, kind of outside of just fighting. And then Jose Aldo, one of the greatest fighters of all time. Not saying that automatically makes Marlon Vera Fighter of the Year, but he definitely sneaks his name into that conversation. I couldn't be more excited for this fight.
100%. I mean, this one should be great. And then if we go to our other pick for Fight of the Night, I mean, Magic Marlon Moraes taking on Rob Font. That should be a great fight. I'm really looking forward to it because, again, it's the same story. Does Marlon start quick? Does he incorporate his kicks? Does he really mess up the rhythm of Rob Font? Or will we see later on in the first round Rob Font really start to gain traction, really kind of shake off some of the rust? And I know he had that ACL injury, and we saw it last weekend with Cub Swanson and Daniel Pineda. I've never seen such a stupid game plan to just go in there with your hands down and expect to knock a guy out. But Daniel Pineda, I mean, $250, I could have taken it, put it in my hand, and burn it. Because Daniel Pineda ruined every single one of my parlays. I threw him on every single one of them. And for everybody out there that goes, Craig doesn't bet, I lost $250 on that. So it is true. But either way, in this fight, I don't have this one on any of my cards, but it is such a good matchup stylistically because the boxing of Font and the kickboxing of Moraes really go together very well.
I agree, but here's the thing. I don't think that we can just keep on saying, oh, Marlon can win the first round or Aldo can win the first round. These are guys who have tired in 5-round fights. Neither guy has ever had a cardio issue with only 3 rounds, and they're put in a position to where they only have to fight for a maximum of 15 minutes, not the extra 25. So although cardio is traditionally an issue for a guy like Marlon and a guy like Jose, it's not going to be nearly as much of a problem in these fights. And I think that that is kind of clouding some people's judgment of, oh, Marlon just has that one big explosion. If you watch him against Aldo, he is able to keep a really high work rate throughout 3 rounds. So I really doubt cardio will be an issue. I love when it comes down to the boxing of Rob Font versus the Muay Thai of Marlon Moraes, because you are going to get, yes, it's going to be a very striking, friendly fight, but it's 2 very different versions of the striker. When Marlon throws his hands, very big looping shots, and if he catches you with a big overhand, it's night-night. But Rob Font really sets up his striking a lot more, will work behind the jab kind of angle. So really excited for this one. I think it's 100% fight of the night.
Brandon Gerber, I'll get into your question as we move along. I really do appreciate it. Now, Matt, what we always do with Fight Night Picks question mark kicks, we start from the bottom. Now we'll go all the way down to the bottom. We'll work our way up through the prelims. So maybe this is the first time you're doing the drill. You got to toss the like and you got to hit up that comment section. It gets very, very busy as we go along. There's already 320 people watching. And again, there's a ton of stuff live on YouTube right now. So everybody, we do appreciate you, and we will get into it, Matt. And if we start down below with Christos Giagos taking on Karl minus. Now, Matt, we made this prediction video last night. You might have seen us in the holiday sweaters getting ready for it. Matt had the Raptors shirt. I had the classic, Best Buy after Christmas at Old Navy cheapo shirt. But overall, this fight is a very good one because you look at Christos Giagos always moving, always doing something. He likes to incorporate his wrestling and his grappling. Sometimes that can be to a fault because he will kind of get a little bit tired as the fight goes on, especially if you try and grapple with him. But overall, has very, very good hands, very busy. And for Karl minus, usually moving forward, usually using a lot of motion as well. The level of competition for these guys, not quite the same. I mean, if you look at Christos Giagos, even if we're talking first run through the UFC, second run through, he's taken on Charles Oliveira, he's taken on Josh Emmett on the regional scene, Gilbert Burns in the UFC. And while he's lost those 3 fights, you can still speak to that level of competition. for Karl minus, again, UFC debut against Matt Semmelsberger. How good's Matt Semmelsberger? Seth Wenzel hitting us up in the super chat. $139.99, you say, so I just won $100,000 off an 18 $500 parlay. You're going to retire from gambling. You got to do that. You're going to be in the super chat every week. Holy smokes, Seth Wenzel.
Seth, that's awesome. Thank you.
You're the real MVP. And Matt, I'm going to go over on my phone. I'm going to figure out what the MVP is of this week because I have to give a shout out. We talked about it last week in the comments section. If you hit us up, we try our best to respond. But there was a comment over there, and I got to give the shout out because Seth threw it up there. So let's go through our MVP of the week from last week, Leighton Huxley, for picking Cub Swanson. I said, listen, if you're right and I'm wrong, I'll give you a shout out in the show. So at Leighton Huxley here on YouTube, you are the real MVP. And again, the $139.99, holy smokes, that's amazing. This year's been crazy, and Seth, we really do appreciate you. So you're now the MVP of the week. We'll give you a shout out in the description under whatever we do next week because there's no fights, but overall, it's a good one. Now, we look at this one, Matt. So Karl minus and Christos Giagos. Christos Giagos still a big favorite. Open about a minus 325. He's still a minus 330 right now. And as I had said, and Brendan Gerber asked the question, what was my pick? I have Christos Giagos and Karl minus. I just have the over 1.5 rounds in this one. It was a minus 200 when I got it. That's one of my two plays on this card here.
So I don't have any money on this fight just because it's really hard to put money down on a guy who accepted the fight yesterday. So we don't know what version of Christos Giagos we're going to get. Here's the great news, though. Even him at 70% probably beats Carlton minus. It's just really hard matchmaking on your poor boy Carlton because he went from fighting Rick Glenn, who stylistically is a hard fight for himself, to Christos Giagos, a guy who, yes, he's coming off a loss, but I would argue he is in much higher standing in the lightweight division than a Rick Glenn. I really like what Giagos brings to the table. He has good grappling. He has good volume. Just a really well-rounded fighter. Like you would mention, he can work himself into exhaustion. The really elevated work rate sort of works to his detriment sometimes. But again, it's really hard to pick against Giagos in this fight.
Yeah, it's a tricky fight. Again, I mean, if you look at Karl minus, the level of competition really not on the same level. And as we always do, Matt, with Fight Night Picks and question mark kicks, we'll have a look at those votes over at Fight Night Picks on Instagram. 231 total votes for Christos Giagos to 121 for Karl minus. That's good for 66% on Giagos. We're both going Giagos here. I'm not putting anything on it because the 3-1 line on Giagos to me is a little bit too far. But again, I do like the over 1.5 rounds in this one. So we move into our next fight on the card, Matt. We have Jimmy Flick taking on Cody Durden. And Matt, I mean, Jimmy Flick, submission specialist, 13 of his 15 total wins are by submission. And for Cody Durden, he can really mix in a lot of things very well. Trains out of that great gym with the Lima Brothers, American Top Team Atlanta. And Matt, I see one of their training partners in Sunset has got a big fight coming up against Howney Barcello, so that's a great one. But overall, in this one, I see people really split on this fight, and I was split on this one a couple of weeks ago when we originally predicted it, and I just kind of threw it into that playlist. I'm still pretty split on this one because, again, like Elongated Rat says, this is a 50-50 fight. It's really tough to try and figure this one out.
It is. It really comes down to, can Durden out-wrestle Flick? And once he does out-wrestle him, can he hold him down? Because if Flick is able to get on top of Durden, not that the fight's over, but that would be the much more compromising position. Flick does throw really nice kicks on the feet. I like his movement, too. He could get caught when he does face some of those higher-level strikers as he moves on. Because his stand-up is a little Jack Hermanson-esque, where it's a little broken, but he can put together nice combos if he does get into a rhythm. I like the overall game of Flick a little bit more than I do of Durden. But again, it is a really hard pick to make.
It's a tough one. So if we have a look at those votes over at Fight Night Picks on Instagram, 253 total votes for Flick to 113 for Durden. Matt, let's have a look at the odds. We'll bring them up on Best Fight Odds. Jimmy Flick opened a minus 155. The line went up. It went back down. He's about a minus 157 right now. For Cody Durden, plus 135 to a plus 132. It all comes down to cardio on this one. I know Guani making a really good point saying Flick wants to prove his striking to Dana. To me, this is one of those ones where you have two guys that really in a 2020 world, they'd probably be on the regional scene, but they're here trying to prove themselves. So they're going to go out there for a finish. I expect Flick to show more than Cody Durden. Again, the eye injury that Durden had and he wasn't able to compete, the 2 weight cuts from a guy that had traditionally fought at 135 pounds. He's had some catch weights at 130. I just worry about it a little bit. The sunglasses were kind of stupid at the face-offs. I thought that was a little weird. So I'm going to go with Jimmy Flick, but again, not a real confident one. I'm not making a play on this fight.
No, same. I have Flick, but it is too close to tell.
Rob's got Flick in this one. What else do we have? Eldar saying Flick is better. Brock Lyon saying, how's it going, boys? Brock, we appreciate you. Dev the dude, you've got flick all day. And Nunya thinks that the picture is funny. Now, Matt, this fight we have Tafon Chookway taking on Jamie Pickett. And I talked about it in the prediction video at the start of the week. I haven't watched this much tape in a very, very long time on two fighters. And again, this was going to be a tale for a lot of these fights on this card. Yeah, Drako Rodriguez supposed to be taking on Aiemann Zahabi. Jamie Pickett's path to victory was kind of the same as Aiemann Zahabi's, is the same as a lot of the guys in the main card. If you look at Jamie Pickett, for him to win, he really has to push his volume, really has to try and mix in the takedowns, just frustrate Tafon Chookway. But when you watch Tafon Chookway, and if you don't even watch the Mataval fight that he had on Contender Series, he's mostly a striker. He's got a Muay Thai background. He's got a kickboxing background. Pro Muay Thai record's 13-1, by the way. A little bit of judo in his back pocket, too. His takedown defense through his 4 professional fights is 100%. 8 takedown attempts in his first pro fight. 5 takedown attempts in his third pro fight against William Knight, who's now in the UFC. And Cody Keller hanging out from Iowa City. Tafon Chookway is a knockout artist. I know Dana White kind of compared him a little bit to a pocket version of Mike Tyson. I was kind of worried about the weight cut. Seeing him on the scale, it looked like it was all right.
Yeah,
he didn't look totally drained. He looked physically pretty good. And he's a big favorite on this card, but I really do like the power. I like the takedown defense. I like the complete game of the fighter representing, and I don't say this very often, but Lloyd Irvin's martial arts. I do like Tafon Chookway in this one. So for me, my little 2-spot parlay is the over in the Giagos fight with Karl minus, and then I have Tafon Chookway. And I basically just about sit at, it's just under a plus 100 there.
There you go. So I agree. I think Tafon Chookway should be able to win this fight. The power that he possesses, not that it's unmatched, it's just he brings quite the big storm. And for Jamie Pickett, the best path to victory can also lead to his loss because he does come in, he throws some wild shots, and if he does think he has his opponent hurt, he gets a little wild. He's not like who we're going to talk about later. Jeff Neal, when he hurts someone, stays technical, marches his way in, doesn't overemphasize the finish to where he can get hurt himself. Jamie Pickett starts throwing Deontay Wilder windmills at you, and Tafon Chookway is far too accurate of a striker to let you get away with something like that. Chookway is one of the easier picks on this card.
And I mean, Guille Dominguez saying Dana White's Contender Series fight. Well, if it was, it'd be Jamie Pickett's 4th, and he's 1-2 in his Dana White Contender Series attempts. And again, has some good fights on his record. It's just really tricky. There was another comment there that I really like. Selman Bundy saying, I got Pickett, you never know. And there was one more. Jacob Cunningham, honestly, I like Pickett here. Tape work can come into play. And Booch for Snooch going with Pickett as well. Nicholas likes Pickett by decision. It's a tough one to try and figure out. Again, I do like Chookway in this one, so I'm sticking with that pick. Now, Matt, we move into a fight that at the start of the week, we were both split on this one. We have the Canadian Jillian Robertson taking on Tyler Santos. This is a tricky one for sure because for Tyler Santos, and again, I issued like a formal apology at the start, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blue belt taking on the now black belted Jillian Robertson training with Dean Thomas and crew. I know she spent some time in North Carolina. There was a comment up there earlier, the fact that she spent a little bit of time with Wonder Boys Gym up there at Upstate Karate. Overall, it's tricky because, again, just like a lot of these fights, you can build a narrative around it. Well, Jillian Robertson only needs a few takedowns, and she can really capitalize on things. Whereas Tyler Santos, I feel like she has not an easier path to victory. She has a lot more methods of getting a win in this fight. She can mix in her striking. She can mix in a little bit of clinch work. And I saw a lot of people this week kind of pointing to the fact that they wouldn't be overly surprised if Tyler Santos even started to mix in a little bit of wrestling. Now, you never want Jillian Robertson on top of you, but Tyler Santos, very good fighter, really looking forward to this one. But overall, what are you seeing in this fight?
Like, Craig has a handful of Wolf tickets, and he's just handing them out right now. I get that you're confident about Santos, but again, the grappling of Robertson, I do think will kind of overpower Santos as the fight progresses, because Santos is going to need distance and space to really be able to create a lot of her own offense. When you're fighting someone like Robertson, yes, her striking isn't phenomenal, but she is great at closing that distance and closing that distance. Robertson could just win a boring fight by holding Santos up against the cage, going for takedown attempts, sometimes getting them, sometimes not, but just continuing to drain on that gas tank of Santos. Now, not that either one have ever had cardio issues, but for Robertson, if you can just keep on leaning on and forcing all your weight on Santos, really force her to work as the fight progresses, I do see her eventually taking the fight to the mat and getting a submission by the end of it. I'm not predicting a finish per se, but I do really like Robertson in this one. I really like her wrestling. I like her cardio. I do think her striking has made improvements since that Macy Barber TKO loss, and I really like her in this fight.
Pradyuman Singh brings up a really good point, and I agree with you. You look at Tyler Santos' record, and it is juiced. It is 100%. But it's one of those ones where you got to fight somebody, and what level of competition women's flyweight are you going to get coming up through Brazil? Then you see her first fight on Dana White's Contender Series against a formidable opponent. Her record, too, was a little sketchy, but she gets a good win there. Then she loses to Mara Romero Barella. She shored up the holes that she had, and then she has that fight against Molly McCann and looks shot out of a cannon like a top 10 UFC women's flyweight. So it's tough to try and tell. Again, I would stay away from this fight personally because women's flyweight can be quite volatile. And in this one, to me, it's, okay, well, if Jillian Robertson gets the win, well, we know exactly where she was. If Taila Santos gets the win, okay, now I can see her as being a little bit more of a reliable pick. In this one, I'm sticking with Santos. I know you're sticking with Jillian Robertson. It's a tricky one. Matt wants the overall highlight of winning this Fight Night Picks Pick'em trophy. I think we're a little bit too far away, but percentages-wise, it might play out. So overall, I'm really looking forward to this fight. I'm going Santos. You're going with Robertson. Now, Matt, Deron Winn, Antonio Arroyo. I've gone out there and I've done even more tape study. I've looked at the comments. I've looked to see what people were thinking. And if you look at the amount of people that are picking Deron Winn, there's not a lot of people. But when they do pick Deron Winn, they were in agreement with our original pick earlier on this week. So let us know in the comments who you're going with in this fight, because it definitely is really tricky. Booch for Snooch saying don't bet on this fight. I don't know if you're further behind with the Santos-Robertson one or if you're in agreement with us here. But overall, really tricky fight because Deron Winn, he's so short. I mean, what is he? What's that?
5'6", we'll say.
8-9 inches shorter than Arroyo. Weight's going to be the same. Arroyo wanted this cut at a catch weight and didn't want it at 185, which, again, it does worry me. So for me, this is a fight that you stay away from. Maybe you're really high on Antonio Arroyo. You like his kicks. But to me, he's just not an active enough fighter to really start landing on Deron Winn. It only takes one, especially with a guy like this, but it's really tricky.
So the last time I was this shocked about seeing two guys on the scale was when Chris Weidman fought Kelvin Gastelum all the way back in 2017. Because by the time they get into the cage, you're like, okay, I understand they both weighed 185 pounds for about 5 minutes yesterday. Chris Weidman ballooned up to well over 200 pounds, whereas Kelvin Gastelum still kind of looked like a welterweight. These guys look like they are separated by 2 or 3 weight classes. The size discrepancy is insane. But I think that works to the advantage of Deron Winn. I really do, and I'm going to stick to my guns on this one. I think the wrestling of Winn is really going to get to Arroyo. I don't like, and like you had said perfectly, the activity of Arroyo is such that unless he gets the knockout, I don't see him winning rounds by being the more active guy on the feet. And if we know anything about Deron Winn, yes, his striking defense isn't great. Yes, his striking's not great, but he does keep a really high work rate throughout the rounds, and it's kind of my Clay Guida effect, where as long as you're doing something and your opponent isn't, the judges are going to respect that, and they will give you rounds for that. So I do like the wrestling of Winn, I like the activity of him on the feet, and although he is the much smaller fighter, I do feel pretty confident with him.
It's a really tricky one. So on this one, let's consult the Fight Night Pick'em crew over on Instagram at Fight Night Picks, Matt. 106 total votes for Deron Winn, 272 for Antonio Arroyo. And it's a tricky one. 72% of voters going with Arroyo. If we have a look, Matt, at the odds for this fight, Antonio gaining in terms of the line at one point a minus 141 this week. He's now at a minus 178. If we have a look at AKA's Deron Winn, opened up a plus 150, now at a plus 148. Again, it's tricky. I'm looking at the comments here. The extra 10 pounds is a gift for Arroyo. I don't know about that. I think it's more of a gift to Deron Winn in this fight more than anything. I know our stream's kind of conking out here on my computer, which is never fun. I can see it up there, so I apologize for that.
My picks are not dubious, okay? I'm confident. I think Deron Winn's got this one.
I really, again, this is one of those ones, if I couldn't make a pick, I wouldn't. But I will switch my pick on this one, and it's not often that you'll see me switching a pick. But I'm going with Antonio Arroyo in this one. I think if he can at least just back himself up to the fence, if he's working his striking, if he can push a little bit of a pace, if he can just have a little bit of a higher work rate. But the guy's been taken down. If you've watched any of his fights, he does get taken down. Like a pot saying Deron got choked out by his last opponent, taller grappler. Gerald Mearshardt's not a bad fighter. No. I know the Khamzat Chimaev fight doesn't really give you a whole lot to work with and really kind of goes against what I just said. Gerald Mearshardt's not a bad fighter. If you look at his fight against Darren Stewart, that was a close one. It was an odd, bad blood fight.
It was a great fight against Winn, too.
Sean Williams hitting us up in the super chat, $20. I really appreciate you. But yeah, Matt, I'm going away from the Deron Winn pick. I'm going with Antonio Arroyo. I think if he starts to land some of those kicks, really starts to go at the arms of Deron Winn as well, he's going to have a lot of success. Now, I know, Matt,
if he gets the body, he's getting taken down faster. That's all I'm going to say.
You and I had a good conversation yesterday with the assassin baby, Brandon Morono, over on the What Happens Here podcast. Make sure you check that one out with Marcus Deegan and Matt Perino. They've had us on a couple of times there this week, but that was an awesome conversation. And for Brandon Morono too, he was getting kicked to the forearm. He was taking a lot of shots to his shoulder. His shoulder got hurt more than his forearm. So if somebody has some close connections with Joe Rogan, maybe let him know that. But yeah, I'm going with the pick of Antonio Arroyo here, Matt. We go into our next fight. We have Sijara Eubanks taking on Pannie Kianzad. And this is another one of those ones, similar to the fight that we just had, where is it going to be wrestling, is it going to be striking? Pannie Kianzad's really started to make some moves in her career. Really seems to be a much better fighter than we even saw before The Ultimate Fighter, which wasn't that long ago, only a couple of years ago. And Sijara Eubanks kind of faltered a little bit here and there, especially in some of those close fights. So it's a tricky one to try and pick. I know at the start of the week, cards on the table, full transparency. Both fairly high on Sijara Eubanks in this one. Have you changed your pick at all this week?
No, again, Sijara Eubanks has something that not a lot of fighters do, where she uses her athleticism, I find, a lot more than other fighters. And I always bring up Alexander Rakic, because I do think he's the best example. Look at Alexander Rakic. What does he do well? Well, he's a good MMA fighter, but the fact that he is such an over-the-top kind of super athlete really just pushes his skill set over the edge and makes him an elite fighter. Not that Sijara Eubanks has the skill set of an Alexander Rakic, but she uses her physicality really, really well. And the only other woman that I can think of who does it fight after fight is a Jessica Andrade. Now, Eubanks won't be going for the same type of takedowns and slams, but she is really good at dragging her opponents to the ground, has great ground and pound. On the feet, it can get a little iffy because sometimes she tires, sometimes she doesn't. You never really know where the cardio of Sijara Eubanks is, because sometimes I'll criticize her for it, then she'll come out and look really good throughout 3 rounds, and then other times I think she's going to look really good and she doesn't. So I never have a very good sort of meter as to where to put Sijara Eubanks in this division, if I'm being completely honest, but I do still think she'll get the win over Pannie Kianzad.
I got a question for one of our viewers, Benjamin Peterson, saying, I trained at the same gym as Pannie, really hope she wins. My question for you is the fact that does or has Emil Mech ever trained at the gym? Because it's one of those things, I read it on a couple of different sites that Emil Mech's trained at Arte Suave before, but I couldn't find it. And Wyatt Kenny saying Pannie trains with Guram and Hamzat at All Stars. So, I mean, if we're at All Stars, then, I guess we're not talking about Arte Suave. So, we got that one answered. If we have a look at the votes at Fight Night Picks on Instagram, 200 total votes for Sijara Eubanks, 164 for Kianzad. That's good for 55% on Eubanks. If we look at the odds, Sijara Eubanks a favorite in this one, open to -175. The line popped up on Kianzad until about yesterday. Eubanks a -153 for Pannie Kianzad coming in here, the underdog at about a +128 best fight odds. Overall, it's a tough one. Again, Prince Vegeta's son saying that Pannie's going to win. Nah. Williams asking Arroyo. I've got Arroyo. Matt's still sticking with Deron Winn. In this fight, we're both going Eubanks.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not changing the pick here. Again, it's a tough one to try and figure out. He has been there a few times, so anybody that said that I was wrong about the Milmec thing, now we have confirmation. So thanks, Benjamin. I'm going to keep that in my graphics that we do up for this. Anthony Pettis, Alex Morono. I see a lot of people talking about this one, man.
Yeah.
Okay. I really do.
I need to be honest. I'm not a big Anthony Pettis fan, or at least I wasn't. I always liked watching him fight, but every interview he ever gave was the same. I'm Showtime. I'm going to do Showtime things, and I'm always going to get back to the title. He always had that Chris Weidmanism in his interviews where it's like, okay, it's just this one win, then I'm back in the title. This one win, and I'm back in the title. It's like, well, geez, Anthony, you've lost 5 of your last 6. Like, maybe we need more than just one. Here's the thing, though. Anthony Pettis seems completely different all of a sudden. He met up with a sports psychologist, and I know a lot of fighters say that and how it just completely changes their game, but he actually seems like he has a complete change in his mindset, and I do think that that's one of the more beneficial things any fighter can, because if you're a fighter and you're just focused on, like, I'm the best in the world, I'm the best in the world, it's really hard to kind of let your ego go and say, okay, I need to make changes in my camp, but everything Pettis has said is like, hey, I haven't been good enough, I haven't got better ever since I was the champ, and I haven't made the adjustments that I need to. If we have a self-aware Anthony Pettis walking into the cage against Alex Morono, he's going to absolutely mop the floor with him, and I don't see the fight being very close at all. It is a little concerning, though, that Alex Morono can kind of replicate the strategy that we've seen beat Anthony Pettis in the past. How do you beat Anthony Pettis? Well, you can't stand at range with him unless your name's Edson Barbosa, because he's just going to kick you a trillion times. You have to smother him. You got to put your chest on his, try to take him down over and over and over again. Alex Morono has a decent wrestling game. He is a good striker. The issue I have, though, is the striking defense of Alex Morono. He can get hit and he can get caught early in fights. And not just bringing that up because of the Chaos Williams loss. If you look back at even the Reese McKee fight, Alex Morono is taking quite a bit of damage early on in that fight. And if you're doing that to a guy like Reese McKee, Anthony Pettis is really going to hurt you. I'm fairly confident with the Pettis pick, even though the odds, I think, should be a little bit closer.
And I mean, a lot of people saying it's Pettis' last fight in his contract. He's probably going to Bellator. I agree with that. Bird hitting us up in the super chat, and Brennan as well. Brennan Riley, Ridley rather, saying, let's get into it. What are your boys? Can't wait to see what you both got in store for 2021. Well, we're not done with this year. We got a lot planned before the end of the year, so make sure you check out some of that stuff, including early stoppage that dropped today. I spent hours on that graphic, so toss that a like. And the channel, too. I mean, we're at 99 likes. Come on, let's get it up over 100. Bert saying, what's up, boys? Chito versus Aldo over under 2.5 rounds. What do you guys think? I think it's probably going to go to a decision in that one.
It's odd. I could see Aldo finishing Vera. It's weird when you look back at Vera's fights, and yes, it was a little while ago, but if you look at the Douglas Silva Andrade fight and also the John Lineker one, and I understand he had fought Lineker when Vera was quite young in his career, and Lineker at the time was a top 5 guy. Lineker lands a ton of body hooks and a ton of punches up top. That concerns me because if you look back at what Jose Aldo does really, really well, he's got a beautiful overhand right, a really good straight right, a great left hook to the body, and really good right leg kicks. So the openings are there for an Aldo finish, but I do agree. It's probably more likely going to decision.
Evan's saying Bellator won't take Pettis, LOL. Nothing left for him. He's never going to be a top guy. Well, they just signed Yoel Romero and Anthony Johnson, so yeah.
And he almost beat Tony Ferguson, not that. Like, again, you have to look at the guys who Anthony Pettis has lost to. If you lose to Dustin Poirier and Tony Ferguson and Michael Chiesa, like, it's not the end of... Actually, beat Chiesa. It's not the end of the world to lose to guys like that. It's just... When you're at the top for such a long time, you only fight killers. That's why Matt Brown's record's not that good, or Robbie Lawler's record's not that good.
Dev the Dude, appreciate your likes. We toss out the appreciations and the likes, and we get up to 135. So we really do appreciate you there coming through for the team. Matt, our next fight on the main card, we have Marcin Tybura taking on Greg Hardy. It's another tale of two fighters because... For Marcin Tybura, I understand. A lot of people are saying, well, he gets knocked out by the best. You look at that run that he went on, he was 1-4, but he's taking on really good fighters, and he got beat by a bigger grappler type in Shamil Durkimov. I know a lot of people aren't high on him. A lot of people point to that Derek Lewis fight. But if you're pointing to that Derek Lewis fight, just forget about the last 5 seconds of the fight and focus on the rest of it, where Marcin Tybura was mopping the floor with poor Derek Lewis. And Derek Lewis is a top 5 heavyweight. Zach hitting us up in the super chat with the $4.99, keeping the channel afloat. We appreciate you. But again, it is a really tough one to try and figure out because for Marcin Tybura, a tidy little win streak, he's had a lovely little 2020. He really has.
He has.
Beating some good names. And for Greg Hardy... It's been a mixed bag his whole UFC career. A lot of people like to point to that Volkov fight and the fact that he took him to a decision, but he lost the decision. And it definitely went in Volkov's favor. And I know Hardy might have hurt his hand, whatever. Volkov is a cerebral type of fighter. He's not just going to march right into Greg Hardy because you know he could still get hit by a power shot. So that one's a little bit of an anomaly. Everybody's always worrying about the cardio, Greg Hardy. I think Marcin Tybura is the type of guy to push a pace and really make you, he's going to wear on Hardy and make you worry about the cardio.
Remember that time Craig lied in one of our videos and was like, Marcin Tybura is one of my favorite fighters. Marcin Tybura can keep a really good pace, and I always like to say how this is kind of the worst of the elite. Not that Marcin Tybura is the worst of the elite, but I do think he's kind of the threshold for I'm a good MMA heavyweight or I'm not a good MMA heavyweight. I would liken him to more of a gatekeeper at the heavyweight division. Again, Ben Rothwell at this point of his career, not allowed in. Derek Lewis, he's allowed into the top 10. So for Tybura, he can fight a few different styles. We have seen good striking from him in the past. The head kick that he had on Luis Enrique was really nice. I know we're going back a few years to get one of those, but his grappling I do think will give Greg Hardy problems. We always look at different kind of challenges that fighters have to get over in their career. For Greg Hardy against Yorgan De Castro, he had finally met the leg kick challenge, which is okay. Can you check leg kicks and get over that hump? Now, he didn't adjust as much as Yorgan De Castro just broke his foot. I didn't really like what I saw from him in that fight, though. He didn't have a high volume. Yes, he was able to outpoint De Castro as the fight progressed, but up until De Castro stopped throwing a high volume, Greg Hardy wasn't looking that good. And Marcin Tybura, he's a bigger heavyweight. He's a little bit slower. He is more hittable than a Yorgan De Castro, but he's a lot better, too, and a lot more skilled. I do see him taking this fight to the ground at some point, and the second it is on the ground, Sergey Spivak's a pretty good MMA grappler, and Marcin Tybura made him look quite amateur. So
Nobi hitting us up in the super chat. You, happy holidays to you. You know what? Let's grab a prop. I'll put on my Cleveland Browns toque for the rest of the show. There we go. Let's go. Brandon Silva hitting us up, Miami 305, and Guani saying Jan Blachowicz type patience, and Briku hitting. Holy frig, the super chat is just lighting it up. All right, so now I wear a toque from now on.
Now, Craig, we have to address some rumors. Are you fighting Khamzat Chimaev? Because I've seen it in the chat about 45 times, and I feel like we need to address it. Are you, in fact, stepping in for Leon Edwards?
I'm going to be the alternate. I've got to gain, between 15 and 20 pounds of muscle, but I'm looking forward to it. George saying Greg Hardy looked like he was going to pass out in post-fight interview in his last time out. He was really tired of that fight. Not impressed. Again, I always worry about the puffer. I know that was one fight, but it's not like your cardio gets better. And this is a guy that
it gets worse.
He's a fast twitch athlete, being a D lineman in the NFL. You got to move quick, and then you got to go back on the line. Then you got to move quick. It's not one of those things that benefits you all that well in a 3-round fight, in a 5-round fight. So I don't really love it. Time is not aligned, saying you like the toque. I mean, I'm a big Browns guy, and I'm not a Fairweather Browns fan either. I was there for the 0-16 season, so there is that. Matt, now let's move on to our next fight. Marlon Moraes taking on Rob Font. The question was there. Let's see. DUQ27 saying, do you believe in Moraes by finish? I don't.
I do. Oh, okay. Then I might as well take the lead on this, and anything you disagree with, please let me know. I think this is a horrible stylistic matchup for Rob Font, and I've really been pressing this fight quite hard, saying that I think Marlon should probably be a bigger favorite. I know he is coming off a really bad loss to Corey Sandhagen. Corey Sandhagen and Rob Font don't fight similar at all. Like, Rob Font doesn't do anything Corey Sandhagen does. Corey Sandhagen stays long, switches stances, he's very kick-heavy, and he's always making his opponent think, whereas he's not setting up his own shots as much as he is setting up his opponent to walk into his shots. Rob Font will use the jab to then set up his right hand, set up some of his better kicks and whatnot, but we've seen Rob Font get tagged by guys who throw big looping shots before. We saw John Lineker was able to hurt him, Rafael Sunsao was able to hurt him, Pedro Munoz was able to hurt him. These are all guys who I don't think are as powerful as Marlon Moraes. Now, Marlon has some detractors. He doesn't have phenomenal cardio, but again, in a 3-round fight, that's not going to affect him nearly as much as I think people are putting the stock into, because Marlon, up until the Henry Cejudo fight, there was never an issue of his cardio. He was just going out there finishing everyone fast. Even in the first Sunsao fight, I know he lost by split decision. It was a close fight. It's not like he got extremely tired as the fight progressed. He just kind of kept the same pace. I think if Marlon's doing well in the first round, he's going to be able to keep that going. I don't even think he needs a crazy high work rate. Kick the leg, kick the body, really work his kicks at range, and I just don't think Rob Font will ever be able to close the distance.
Chris hitting us up in the super chat. Good luck tonight, guys. Great work as always, and enjoy the holidays and fights tonight. We appreciate you. And for James Slaughter's question, do you guys have Cash App or Venmo? A, Canadians, but B, hit up some of the merch. Some of the merch at FightNightPicks.net. We have a website. I don't know if a lot of people know about that, but that's where the podcast goes when it goes to iTunes and Spotify. It's on the website. There's all the YouTube content. We're making moves and starting grooves over on that website. I won't give a whole lot away, but had some conversations this week about doing some more stuff over there. So I'm really looking forward to that. Sean wants the OnlyFans. There's no way I'm making
We could do color commentary for the UFC one day. Just get our names out there. Just keep on, I don't know, spam Dana White, I guess.
Jacob Cunningham saying, if we put up $500 in the super chat, could we see you guys arm wrestle?
Well, yeah, Craig's going to win easy. Well, here, make sure people can see.
Okay, here we go.
1, 2, 3. This could be so bad.
Well, I can't move the whole mat. There,
okay, Craig won. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta help out the boys.
Better.
You gotta help out the boys. But in terms of this fight, Matt, if we have a look at Fight Night Picks over on Instagram, it's a tricky one because 328 votes for Marlon Moraes to 74 for Rob Font. That's good for 82%. That's absolutely insane that many people are going with Marlon. I don't feel overly confident in this fight.
Listen to me.
Because again, with Rob Font, you look at a guy like Rob Font and the fact that he's coming back from ACL surgery. You know how good his boxing is. And I threw that little picture out there. It was from 2019, the fact that he was at a little New England Fights card that I was at covering. Right there, hopping in, hanging out with the guys, training. I like that from a lot of fighters. I've said that a lot in the past. Michael Johnson's one of those guys. Michael Chiesa is another. Gilbert Burns. They're always on a traveling show. They're always helping out a lot of their teammates. And you learn and grow from that, especially if you're a fighter. Like even like Joe Lozon, when he was fighting, you'd see him in a lot of corners. Now he's a coach at Lozon's MMA, where Rob Font's coming out of. So it's really cool to see stuff like that from Rob Font. I worry a little bit about the ACL thing. Again, Cub Swanson turning back the clock, beating Daniel Pineda, and we didn't have to end up worrying.
Now, we also have to remember it aged Thiago Santos about 75 years, though, too.
Yeah, that's true. So it's always tricky to tell where you're going to get. But with Rob Font, if he can withstand that early kind of blitz from Marlon Moraes, round 2, round 3, Rob Font with the boxing. So I'll be eager to see what happens in that first round. Maybe I see what the live bet is between round 1 and round 2. But overall, I'm making the pick and sticking with Marlon Moraes in this fight. So Matt, we go into our next one, and this one's absolutely bonkers. Over on Instagram when we went live, Small Paul Felder had this as his fight of the night. And I think it's going to be an awesome one because Michel Pereira, you look at what he does. He's doing the flip stuff at the weigh-ins. Chaos Williams, mean mugging, wearing the glasses. Jacob Cunningham not hitting us up with the $500 in the super chat like he said he would. So just straight up lying.
So I lost an arm wrestling match for nothing.
Oh, well. Kevin Gordon hitting us up in the super chat. And DUQ27, thanks for answering the question. Best of luck. You're riding hard on Pettis, Moraes, and Hardy. I mean, we can all agree to disagree. But yeah, it's an awesome card overall. Michel Pereira, Chaos Williams. Now, Nick's hard on Chaos. I see a lot of people really hard on Chaos Williams. You saw 2 fights in the UFC that lasted less than a minute.
For transparency, we were 2.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. You saw 2 fights where he ended them in the first, 30 seconds and less. And then you have a look at what he's done on the regional scene. It's been a mixed bag. There's been some fights going to decision. He uses a little bit of wrestling. He's the type of guy that in a fight, he's always trying to do something. Michel Pereira is like that. I like the movement on the feet for Michel Pereira, and I like the experience factor for Michel Pereira in this fight. So I'm sticking with the pick of Michel Pereira. It's a tricky one. Again, I would never put a single dollar on this fight. And I can see, again, we picked different picks at the start of the week. People are going to trash us in the comments either way, so go ahead. But I'm going with Pereira. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if Chaos Williams knocks him out either.
I said this is the most heavyweight welterweight fight ever, and I'm going to stand by that. We're either going to get one of the best first-round finishes you've ever seen. It could be a flying knee knockout. It could be an overhand right knockout. Who really knows? I think Chaos Williams is going to be able to get it done. It's hard to pick against a guy who's only had 2 UFC fights that have lasted less than a minute combined. And again, with Michel, it's all the wildness and whatnot I think can get him caught. And against a guy like Chaos Williams, you're not going to want to testing all that, wild stuff out on him. I got Chaos by first-round finish.
And I mean, Matt, 255 votes at Fighting Picks on Instagram, going with Chaos Williams to 165 for Pereira. That's good for 61% on Chaos Williams. As far as the line, I'll have a look because, again, I haven't looked at it all week other than the original video. It went up, and Pereira opened to minus 175. He's now minus 112. Chaos Williams minus 110. So it's a pick'em fight. I was surprised it wasn't a pick'em fight earlier. There was a little bit of value on Chaos. Now it's gone. So, yeah, I'm staying away from this fight. I'm looking forward to it, but sticking with Michel Pereira, and if I'm wrong, I'm just straight wrong on that one. Matt, Jose Aldo, Marlon Vera, another tricky one, because again, we're talking distance, we're talking the fact that Marlon Vera is going to have a reach advantage, a little bit of a height advantage in this one. Jose Aldo, again, greatest featherweight of all time. I saw one commenter out there saying it was Max Holloway. Okay, I disagree.
Nice to know Joe Rogan comments.
I disagree, but I'm going with Jose Aldo in this one, not changing my pick. And to answer the question, how much time's left before the early prelims? 18 minutes. We got to finish up the show.
So, again, I'm overly confident with my Jose Aldo pick. You have fighters who go on these losing streaks, and then eventually the UFC, I'm going to say, gives them a gimme, or they give them an underhand toss. And not that Marlon Vera is an easy fight for anyone. Marlon Vera is a much easier fight than Petr Yan. He's a much easier fight than Alexander Volkanovski. He's a much easier fight than I would say Marlon Moraes, even at this stage in his career. If Marlon Vera is able to get the win over Jose Aldo, it means that we are seeing a passing of the torch, not only really in the division, but in the UFC as a total. We had a video a few weeks ago, Is Pride Finally Dead? Not just Pride, but now WEC's kind of starting to go, and Strikeforce is starting to go. Like, we don't have as many of those old school outside of the UFC guys around anymore. I still really like Jose Aldo. Marlon Vera fights a lot like Renato Moicano did at 145, just without the submission game. He's a tall guy. He strikes in a very similar way, and he does leave his chin up very high. And there's a lot of his body exposed when he does strike. I worry a little bit that if Aldo does try to rush in and land one of those big body hooks, Vera could meet him with a knee. And at 135, we don't really know where the body health of Jose Aldo is. But I still really like Aldo, and I'll even say by stoppage.
I mean, Matt the Mick hitting us up in the super chat. You're going with Aldo by decision. Garrett in the super chat. You're going with Chito Vera. The man's an absolute beast. It's a tricky one. Again, I don't have this in any of mine.
Here's the thing, too. We don't pick this for fight of the night because it's going to be a one-sided fight. Like, Marlon Vera is going to give Jose Aldo everything he can handle. Because Marlon Vera, I know gameness isn't really something that you can rate in MMA. Marlon Vera is ready for it, and he's one of the more exciting guys. Even if he is getting beat for 2.5 rounds, he's going to be giving it his all in that third round. Like, Marlon Vera is never out of the fight until he is stopped, so I am extremely excited for it.
Well, we'll see what happens. Really looking forward to it. Again, both of us going with Jose Aldo, and if we have a look at the picks at Fight Night Picks, 51% going Aldo to 49% with Chito Vera. That's 214 votes on Aldo to 205 for Vera. Now, Matt, before we get into our main event, we're stretched for time. We get 16 minutes left, but we have to talk about our presenting sponsor. They came on board this past winter, Matt. Manscaped. I mean, what can I say? Manscaped is the best in men's below-the-belt grooming, and they have a great offer, especially this holiday season, for Fight Night Picks fans. You get 20% off and free shipping with the promo code FNP at manscaped.com. Make your testes your besties. They offer precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. If you buy the perfect package, you get the shirt. George Grunt hitting us up saying, have a great night, guys. God bless.
I hope you have a great night.
God bless your balls. And Matt, Manscaped, you get the boxer briefs. The shirt's great. The boxer briefs are great. Cody Donner's an absolute dingus. And Matt, if we get into it, we have the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant. It's just great stuff. The Crop Reviver Ball Toner. It's good stuff too. But Matt, the best part of this, and I mean, we've all been there. You're shaving your nuts in the shower. You can't see what you're doing. You nick it.
I need a light.
And you're having a tough time. Matt, there is a light on that trimmer, and I gotta say, it's the greatest thing out there. Manscaped's redesigned the electric trimmer. The Manscaped engineering team has perfected the greatest ball hair trimmer ever created and just released the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0. It's a third-generation trimmer. It features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents. And when I tell you it's premium, it's premium. The battery's gonna last up to 90 minutes, so you can take a longer shave. Again, waterproof technology. You can do whatever you need to do in the shower. Matthew Doherty is, what if you've been castrated? Well, there's still hair above your dick, so, you can go after that stuff if you want to. They've upgraded to a 7,000 RPM motor with quiet stroke technology. And let's not forget about the charging stand. It's great. You put it on the charging stand. You put it in there for your holiday party. Everybody has a look, and it is what it is. Again, gas saying, do the Manscaped in the bathroom seen by the guest thing. The other thing, too, they have the Weed Whacker, and I'm a nose hair guy.
I can hear it trimming right now. He's a nose hair guy.
I just trim my nose on a show. Plus, they come with a great traveling case. So, again, get 20% off and free shipping with the promo code FNP at manscaped.com. Again, 20% off and free shipping, manscaped.com. Use the promo code FNP. Your balls will thank you. Make sure you check it out. And, Matt, let's talk about this main event. Everybody's heard enough about my nuts. We're talking about Wonderboy Thompson taking on Geoff Neal. Matt, this is such a great fight in the fact that you have such a good counter striker, such a good striker from two different stances, and a totally different look from two different stances between your guy, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and your other guy, Geoff Neal. Matt, these two fighters are the top of the pops at 170 pounds, and it's great to see Geoff Neal from a bad place where he was earlier on this year. Really, from all accounts, fighting for his life, to getting ready for a 5-round main event against a former title challenger in Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Overall, I really think this is going to be a great fight. Matt, what's the final call on this one here?
Okay, you put a little bit of pressure on me saying both of them are my guys. Again, I like both of them. I wouldn't put them in my pantheon of favorite fighters. Listen, Geoff Neal is, again, there's been a lot of these sort of crossroad fights on this card. And I don't know if the UFC is just looking to cut some people, which they are. I don't think Wonderboy's going to be on the list no matter what. But there are a lot of these. Okay, we have a really promising prospect against the more established name on this card. Of course, the Rob Font, Marlon Vera fight kind of follows that same pattern. The Marlon Vera, Jose Aldo fight does. If Geoff Neal is able to get the win, people are going to have to start taking fights against Geoff Neal. And that has been the big problem for him. He's in that weird Ryan Hall category where it's like, okay, you're really, really good, and you could beat a lot of these guys who are ranked, but no one wants to fight you because 5 people know who you are. And it's unfortunate that that's how the fight business works. Geoff Neal, this is one of the more stylistic, favorable matchups for him in the top 15 of 170, because Wonderboy isn't going to go out there and try to wrestle him. He will play the striking game with Geoff Neal. This might be one of those picks where I change my pick. I do like Wonderboy in this one. I was going with Geoff Neal earlier on in the week. I like the ability to counter-strike from Wonderboy, and I know what I'm going to get from Wonderboy's cardio over 5 rounds. If he is able to get to Geoff Neal early and do what he was able to do to Vicente Luque, where it's, okay, I lost the first round, I got hit a little bit, let's download that game plan and then figure out what we did wrong in the second. If he is able to get through the holes of Geoff Neal in that second round, Wonderboy's going to be able to do that for 4 additional rounds until the fight's over. Whereas Geoff Neal, I haven't seen him be able to make those adjustments yet mid-fight. I'm picking Wonderboy, but I can fully admit Geoff Neal could win by knockout.
We got to go up, and we appreciate you, Billy Hazelton, saying happy holiday, boys. Enjoy the fights. Appreciate the super chat. John Frankel was in here saying, why wouldn't you be able to see what you're doing in the shower? Because I shower in a cave. Actually, it's an igloo. We're up here in Canada. It's cold. And there's a lot of snow. Somebody, who was it? Matthew Doherty saying we should hit up Ryan Hall. What if I've hit him up before and haven't heard back from him? What do you know? Maybe I have.
It's a very real possibility.
It's true. And Phil saying Wonder Boy's 37. Yes, he is. So,
he is.
with
Wonder
Jeff
Man.
Neal in this fight, again, it's been a while since we've last seen him. His level of competition isn't up to snuff with Wonder Boys. 209 total votes at Fight Night Picks on Instagram for Jeff Neal, 208 for Wonder Boy. So we're really close as far as that's concerned. If we have a look at the odds, this one's very close too. It's pick'em odds. So really, it's tough to go wrong. John Franklin in the chat, co-host for Early Stoppage. New episode's out there. Make sure you check it out. As far as picking this fight, I'm going to keep my pick the same. I'm going with Jeff Neal in this one. Again, I want to see what happens after that first round before I do anything, but I'm not putting any money on this one. I'm just really looking forward to this fight. So I'm going Neal, you're going Thompson. Let's go back down through, talk about these fights again. Christos Giagos, Matt. Christos Giagos and Karl minus. I'm going with Giagos, and I've got the prop bet of over 1.5 rounds in this fight.
I've got Giagos too. It's hard to be overly confident with him taking the fight on 1 day's notice, but if he showed up in shape and at the best version of himself, he should be able to win this one.
All right, Matt. So we do have that. Flick Jones saying, do we want to get Casey Kenny on the show? 100%. If you can get Casey Kenny on the show,
it would be nice.
We'd love to have him. This week in MMA is where those interviews are going to go. So if you didn't get the chance to check it out, we had Adrian Yanez on last week with Canadian country music legend Tebe. But Adrian Yanez had some spicy things to say about the bantamweight division and the return of TJ Dillashaw. So make sure you check that out. That was a lot of fun. If we get into our next fight, Jimmy Flick, Cody Durden, another tough one. I'm going Flick.
Flick as well.
Flick as well. Our next fight, Tafon Chookway taking on Jamie Pickett. I've got Chookway parlayed with that over 1.5 rounds in our first fight there between Giagos and minus. That's the only bet that I have on this card. So Chookway and the over in our first fight.
I agree with Chookway. Again, I don't have any money on this one, but I do like Chookway.
All right, you got Chookway. We move into our next fight, Matt. Jillian Robertson taking on Tyler Santos. Split on this one. I've got Santos.
I have Robertson. I like her overall grappling. I do think it will eventually get to Santos as the fight progresses. I have Robertson on one parlay. For what it's worth.
Yeah, I don't have either of them. Too volatile of a fight for me. Winn Arroyo, I changed my pick. I'm going with Antonio Arroyo in this fight.
I like Deron Winn. I know the size discrepancy. It's a little concerning just because he does look so much smaller than Arroyo. But again, I really like the wrestling of Winn. I think I'll be able to grapple him.
Let's see. Matt Doherty said if I could get Ryan to answer, yeah. So if you can get Ryan Hall on this show, we'd be more than willing to talk to him. Devin saying, damn, missed it live. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Matt, if you want to hit us up, again, it's at Fight Night Picks on Instagram. I do my best to answer each and everybody that tries to reach out. Sijara, Eubanks, Pannie, Kianzad. I've got Eubanks in this one.
I have Eubanks.
Matt's got Eubanks. In our next fight, we've got Anthony Pettis, Alex Morono. I've got Pettis here.
I like Anthony Pettis in this one quite a bit.
Then we have Marcin, Tybura, Greg Hardy. It's a tough one. I've got Marcin, Tybura.
I have Tybura. That's on the same parlay as the Roberson fight. I just have a few fights on there that have pretty close odds.
Marlon Moraes taking on Rob Font. I've got the Brazilian Marlon Moraes in this one. But again, this one's tricky. It's not the most confident pick in Marlon.
I have Marlon. I think it will be a phenomenal fight for as long as it goes, but I do like Marlon in this one.
Nate brings up a good point, saying it's a shame the Bilal Muhammad fight's canceled.
I know.
Straight up, Nate. Bilal Muhammad, Tafon Chookway, and Karl Roberson were going to be my guys for today, but unfortunate that two of them fell out, and it's easy for me to just say that, but just take it on faith. Our next fight, Michelle Pereira taking on Chaos Williams. I think we're still split on this one. I've got Pereira.
I've got Chaos Williams. Again, this is a hard one to pick. Someone's getting knocked out. That's pretty much all I can guarantee.
All right, and then our next fight, our co-main event, Jose Aldo taking on Marlon Vera. Jose Aldo, Marlon Vera. It's a tough one.
I'm obnoxiously confident about how Jose Aldo is going to win this fight. He's my last fighter on that little 3-fight parlay. Not a bad pick, I don't think. I just really like Aldo in this. He's beaten guys like Vera before.
And then we move into our main event of the evening, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson taking on Jeff Neal. Matt, it's a great fight. Jeff Neal on such a big run. His last loss was to Kevin Holland on the regional scene. And Matt, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, I mean, what can I say? He's been at the top for a very long time. Hard to believe he only has as many pro fights as he does. I think it's going to be a great fight. I get Jeff Neal in this one.
I have no idea. No, I think Stephen Wonderboy Thompson should win. Again, very hard fight to predict. This whole main card is just really difficult.
Well, Matt, it has been a crazy year. I'm going to switch it on over to, I think it was this one. There we go. It's been a crazy year with Fight Night Picks, and for the almost 700 of you that are still here, appreciate the subscriptions, appreciate the likes, appreciate all the super chats. You guys have made this year so special. I mean, with all the shows and the content that we're looking to add, we're just looking to kind of enhance that Fight Night Picks feel. yes, the picks are great and they're awesome, but some of that other stuff is kind of where we started off with Fight Night picks. And we always like going back to it. So with the few commenters out there that kind of mentioned, the interviews with Ryan Hall and some of the other fighters, Casey Kenny was mentioned as well. We'd love to bring more and more fighters on, have a chat with them. We talked to Brandon Morono last night. It's on the What Happens Here podcast. We'll clip that into some of our stuff. So we really do appreciate that. Branch Above, you've been great. Raymond, you've been great. Julian really likes your pick. Cody Keller's still hanging out. And it's just been a great time. So we really do appreciate everybody out there. And it's just been a crazy one so far.
We can't do it without you guys. You guys are the best community out there by far. And we love doing shows like this for you guys. So just let's make 2021 way better than 2020 was. And for us, 2020 was a pretty good year.
All right, so everybody go out there and enjoy the fights. We'll be back again with some more content coming out this week, and hopefully you can check that out. Let us know what you're thinking about it. Check out Early Stoppage if you get the chance. I'm sure there's going to be a recap show. John Franklin's hopping up and down in the chat, so we're really looking forward to it, Matt. And with Fight Night picks, as we always say, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. It's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig and Matt.